Hello, we're back. Sorry for those that might have caught us briefly a few minutes ago. We were trying to stream to Facebook and YouTube, and it gave me an error message for Facebook. Fingers crossed, we are now live on both platforms. If you tune in and watch us, we'd love it if you could let us know if you can see us, hear us, and if our sound is okay. And let us know which platform you're watching from. Otherwise, we're just going to be talking to ourselves, and hopefully it will be a nice recording you can watch at a later date. So tonight we did advertise that we would talk about the International Plant-Based Nutrition Healthcare Conference, and it was a month ago, wasn't it? It was just over a month ago, and we did a live stream from the when we'd been at the conference after the first 2 days, and we had hoped that maybe we could have done a live stream soon after the conference, but we got very busy. We flew to the east coast of the USA very early morning after the conference, and had a fabulous time. I'm still conscious of the fact that I don't think we've got anyone watching us live, and it might be because we had to reset it and no one has the link. That's a real shame. Anyway, let's keep going. I really hope it pops up somewhere and some people can join us live. So yes, when we went to the East Coast, we stayed with different friends in a few different places, and it was fabulous being able to connect, particularly with some people we'd met through the plant-based world. We went to Cape Cod and caught up with Jean Shoemaker, who has the YouTube channel Simply Plant-Based, and we stayed with her, and her husband were fantastic hosts, took us around Cape Cod, and she also organised a potluck meetup for us, in our honour. She regularly organises potluck meetups, and she timed this one for our stay and asked us to give a talk. So and I'm rattled by the fact that we've still not got any viewers, and I don't know if there's anything I can do about this. Anyway, what we advertised we were going to do was to catch up on the last 2 days of the conference. And I have to confess that, my memory's faded. I need to watch some of them again. I'd made a particular note. There was a talk by Roseanne Oliveira on habit change, which was excellent. And because I do coaching work, I'm definitely going to watch that one again. I can see we have someone viewing, and I'd really like to ask them, can you make a comment as to which platform you're on, because we had a problem with the live stream, and I'm worried that in fact having to reset it, that the YouTube link we'd sent people through our newsletter is probably to the other one, and I don't know. So hopefully you could type into the comments if you can hear us okay, and which platform you're watching from, Facebook or YouTube, because we had a bit of a problem. Anyway, I'll let you go on with okay, thank you.
You're on Facebook. Excellent.
That's good.
Because it was Facebook that gave us the problems. We started live stream as we have every other time.
Yeah.
And it gave a message to say that it cancelled something, wasn't going to record it. Hi, Sally.
Good. So I've got people from both Facebook and YouTube. That's good. Just probably it wasn't at the original link that we might have sent.
Well, I'm usually fairly happy talking to myself.
Okay. Well, away you go. Do you want to comment on the highlights of the last 2 days of the conference?
Well, I'm looking at the listing of this 10 speakers and just sort of thinking, how many hours do we have to sum this up? So I'm going to be very, very, very selective here. One presentation I found very interesting was the one by Dr. David Katz, public health expert, brilliant man, leader in his field. And he talked about, what we know about food and health, and how we know what we know. He started off, presenting evidence that, in actual fact, food, what Americans eat, is, the number one leading cause of sickness and death in the USA. Except maybe in COVID, when COVID may have taken over for a while as a cause of death. But even then, what you ate made a huge difference to how likely you were to get severely ill or die of COVID. And then looked at the Global Burden of Diseases study, which sort of looks at how what we eat affects our health outcomes across the world and what diseases people get. And then drill down a bit and have a look at sort of how the food works, how it changes the epigenetics, how the food that promotes our own health also promotes the health of the gut microbiome. The research that looks at what people eat in heart disease, and some of the big studies like EPIC, where you can single out 6 or 8 diet and lifestyle factors, and if you tick all those boxes, you do away immediately with a lot of your risk of heart disease. He'd actually, so that was sort of the part one of his presentation about what we know about what food can do. And the last part on that was what type of food. And David Katz is not sort of an SOS-free whole foods vegan promoter. He's a public health expert, takes a sort of broader view, but he looked at data on foods that are associated with less risk of dying from disease, and also finished off that section with looking at the environmental impact of food. And that, in most cases, it pretty much aligns fairly well. The same sort of, whole grains, legumes, nuts, vegetables, fruits, plant predominant diet that supports better health, or also supports better environmental less environmental impact. So it's sort of a win-win there. Part 2 was very interesting, because part 2 was how we know what we know. And he talked about randomized controlled trials. In medicine, we in health, we talk about evidence-based, the strongest evidence. Where you want to test a pill or a supplement, and you just randomly divide the people up, and no one knows how the pills were labeled and who had what till the end of the study, and it's all unbiased. Very difficult in nutrition, but there have been some done. But he points out that generally almost no randomized controlled trial is truly open and unbiased in terms of the selection of the subject and the type of, the people who are going to be in the study, and the type of intervention you're going to have, and how the data is analysed. We see this all the time. We see sort of giant olive oil funded studies in other food industries where it's biased right from the start, and if you want to make the olive oil look good, you make sure that you do the olive oil and more fruit and veg at the same time, and then we can't really tell which one made you healthier, but we can make a claim. But he wasn't really talking about that. The other point he made was, you've got to ask the right question. The answer that you get from your randomized controlled trial won't be any better than the question you ask. And this reminds me of one of our local studies that looked at what happened when people without high blood pressure ate either a lot of extra virgin olive oil or just a lot of very plain olive oil. And it's like, how can the answer to that really help us, for example, deal with people who do have high blood pressure? Um,
Sorry, I've been fiddling with the other
Yeah,
link. There are
yeah,
two
yeah.
YouTube streams.
So from that area, talking about randomized controlled trials and that they're not totally unbiased and things, moved on to this very vexed question and this argument we often get. It's like, that's just correlation, not causation. Have you ever heard people say that when they want to dismiss data on plant predominant, whole food predominant nutrition and health outcomes? Like, it's just correlation. Like, how do we really know that anything's not correlation? Interesting question. And then that brings us to, we know as humans, like, just maybe when my hand's a bit burnt, that when my hand gets a bit burnt, I flick it and I touch the side of the metal kettle. But I can tell you that A causes B. If I accidentally put my hand on the metal kettle and it's boiling hot, it'll get burnt. And if I go and water my garden on a hot day, it won't wilt. Maybe it's not the water. Maybe the plants were just happy having me out there. But no. So as humans, we're actually very good at establishing that, A causes B, and we need to for our day-to-day life to sort of work. And it's one of the challenges with AI to get that very common sense and just be able to understand, like, basically, if you step off a ledge that's too high, you're going to fall down and damage yourself. And it is a challenge getting AI to do that. But as humans, we do that all the time. However, we don't always have those randomized controlled trials, and so when it comes to nutrition and health and lifestyle medicine, we can determine cause and effect. And he actually directed to a book that we could read, The Book of Why, on the actual science of going from just correlation to yes, A causes B. And I read chapter 1, but then I was on a 4-hour flight and I thought I was listening to it while I was half asleep and my eyes are closed, until I realized my thumb was dragging down my phone and jumping to different parts of the book. I'll get back to that book. So in lifestyle, to have research to be able to sort of say that, for example, repeated concussion will lead to brain damage or lead to dementia. I mean, well, who's done the randomized controlled trial? Incidentally, that's my example, not David Katz's. But really, we can look at other data and establish, that A causes B. We can look at a mechanism, like do we understand some sort of biological health mechanism by which this works, or a number of mechanisms? And then, like, do we have a randomized controlled trial, or maybe just a sort of a bit of an intervention study that wasn't really an RCT, but sort of suggested that A causes B, and then we'd also go and look at large numbers of people, and it looks like those that get exposed to A often get B, and we can look at a group, what happens when people do A, behaviour or food A, through their life. Do they get more B? So we can, in nutrition science, actually establish, we can go from correlation and show causation, that we know to a fair degree of certainty that A causes B, like red and processed meat cause colorectal cancer, for example. It's not just about correlation. So I thought that was a very interesting talk about what we know about food, but I thought that particularly the second part, like how we know what we know about the effect of different foods, diets, lifestyle on health outcomes.
No, it was a very good talk, wasn't it? Anything else on the?
Well, I did like
Vanita, Dr.
I did like
Vanita
Dr.
Raman,
Vanita
yeah.
Raman, Dr. with the PCRM Barnard Medical Center in Washington. I thought her talk was very good, and it was about nutrition and the GLP-1 weight loss drugs and similar drugs, um, for long-term success. And she gave some clinical examples. Well, what would you do with this patient? And then this case and this case, the different scenarios, and sort of left that with us till later when she revealed what she did. And she's not totally opposed to using these drugs, but was looking at the evidence, and the evidence is that if you take Ozempic or Mounjaro or something similar, um, you know, you'll get plenty of side effects. You might get some, nausea or vomiting and the various other things that'll happen. Hey, in the long term, you might even get some eye damage, but you will have a greatly reduced desire to eat and capacity to eat a lot of food. So you eat a lot less and you will actually lose weight on them, but only really for about a year. After that, after the year, and incidentally, in that year, I think they said only about 12% of people actually got to normal weight. So people went from very obese to obese, and some people actually managed to go from obese to overweight. So, not amazing, but pretty big results compared with other things people do. Most people stop them in less than a year because, they have a few side effects, but they're very expensive too, especially in the USA, where people really get taken by a pharmaceutical industry. Am I allowed to say that in the era of Trump? I'm not about to go to the US.
We're safely back in the
we're
US,
safely
in
back
Australia.
in Australia. I no longer have to watch my social media for saying inappropriate things. So yeah, most people stop them in less than a year, but if you stop them, your weight tends to drift back towards where it was, which sort of makes sense. You're still eating the same food. Um, so then you take them for a year, your weight comes down a bit, and then you take them presumably forever to stop it creeping back up again. And then she looked at some nutrition studies, particularly sort of low-fat, whole food, plant-based. Or low-fat, plant-based diet sort of studies, including mentioning from our friends across in New Zealand, um, um, that did the broad study that found that those people lost about 11 kilos compared to placebo in just 6 months of just being given the type of diet to eat, not being told to restrict food or exercise or anything. And they kept most of that off at 12 months. So there's quite a few studies being done. And if you want to do a Mediterranean diet for any reason for health, I mean, it is sort of vegetarian light, so it's better than standard American or standard Australian. It's a lousy diet for weight loss. It doesn't really work. And it's probably because, it's all those extra concentrated calories with all the oil in it. So yeah, that was an interesting presentation. So really, for long-term success, she might sometimes prescribe those drugs, I guess, to sort of get people started and things. But in the long term, it's the type of food you eat. And we know that low-fat, whole food, plant-based works. At the end of her talk, she did sort of address some of the other issues and that affect what we eat, like there is sort of binge eating, food addiction, and various types of emotional eating that occur. So she did acknowledge those as well. Did you want to talk about any other talks, Jenny, like the habit change talk? I enjoyed. I thought the habit change talk on the final day by Roseanne Oliveria was good, but I just finished reading B.J. Fogg's Tiny Habits, and B.J. Fogg sort of resonated with me better than Roseanne Oliveria for no particular reason. Maybe it was maybe because I'm a male and he's a male or something. I don't know.
I just noted that I really need to watch it again. She did use, I was trying to remind myself, and I've probably lost it now. What was it? Let me just get back to it. I lost it. Lost it. Oh dear. Okay. I was trying to remember those quadrants. Where's it gone? The other way. No.
The other way.
No. Because I'm looking at it on my iPad and it doesn't give you the whole name. I can't see it. Oh, there it is. The four tendencies, that's right. And the four tendencies.
Sort of like like dividing personality up.
The author Rubin, and in applying it to the context of helping people make healthy lifestyle changes. The four tendencies being upholder, questioner, obliger, and rebel. And it reminded me when I've done some work with coaching groups, I've usually got the groups to watch Doug Lyle's Perfect Personality presentation, and that can be really useful in people identifying why it is that it's harder for some to eat a healthy diet than others, and these sort of resonated with some of those themes about
like the easiest ones is like I'll take your advice and I'll do it, and I believe it, so I'll do it.
Or the questioner that I'll comply if you convince me why. So the person who might be a bit skeptical, but once they get it, they think, right, I'll do it. But then there's the obliger and the rebel, and I know over the years we've met a few rebels, and I've had in my coaching group a few rebels.
They're ones that you can't tell them, and even if they know, it's like, and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, well, even when they set a goal and say, by next week I'm going to be doing this, and the next week they say, oh, I knew as soon as I said it that I wasn't going to do it. That's very much the rebel. But yeah, it's.
Hi, Christine, live.
Yeah, that was anyway, and she's a great speaker. So it was a great talk, but I just can't really share much other than it was about behaviour change, and need to watch that one again. And it finished up with a talk from Dr. Michael Greger. Unfortunately, he wasn't there in person. He usually does come to the conference in person. But
nearly others. Was every other speaker there in person?
No,
Did Dean Ornish be in again?
Yeah.
The final panel was good though.
I was just going to mention what Michael Greger was talking about ultra-processed foods. In the diet, so it was a talk we hadn't heard before.
And there's some interesting points. People come out and said all ultra processed foods really bad, and we teach people that too, I think. But then the argument comes up. It's well, hang on. What about that tomato sauce with this high fructose corn syrup and something or other that you might put on your food, and actually that might not actually be too bad at all, and might be maybe for a lot of people better than not having tomato sauce, or the goodness that's in the real tomatoes that are in there, just because it had one ingredient that you might not have in your kitchen. And I think another example of people think of some of those sort of processed, slightly salty, sort of nutrition degraded sort of breakfast cereals. I think of cornflakes. I think Weet-Bix would cut above that, but I think of something like, so some of those breakfast cereals, when you actually look at large groups of people, on the American diet, they're not actually the worst things that people can eat. They don't seem to be associated with worse outcomes compared with the rest of the diet. Maybe that's because the rest of the diet's worse. But that was an interesting point, I think, that comes out of looking at the what the science actually shows about the some of the ultra processed food being not too bad, but a lot of it having really terrible things in it.
And yes, so the conference finishes up with a panel, Q&A, and it's always interesting hearing people's questions. in this day and age, the conference uses an app, so you ask the questions through the app. I remember the early years, people lined up to grab the
because then someone
microphone.
can't grab the microphone and give their own presentation, which did happen sometimes in earlier years.
And also with the questions in the app that you can kind of vote on them, in the sense that you can tap, that's one that you're interested in, and they'll shift to higher up.
It was a pity that because the last session was sort of 11:30 till 2, it was after lunch, that quite a few people. It was in Palm Desert, Palm Springs, and which is a few hours drive out of Los Angeles, and so quite a few people were flying home from there. We didn't fly out till the next morning, but quite a few people, at least more than half the audience, I think, it left by the Q&A, which is a pity, because there were some good discussions there, like about omega-3 fats and supplements, and they had some very sensible panelists giving answers, and they sort of maybe corrected the over enthusiasm of one of the previous day speakers on why we all need to take omega-3 DHA supplement for our brain health. And there were questions asked, the usual ones about protein and things. But I thought the panel had some very intelligent, nuanced answers. It was a good finish to the conference before Scott Stoll gave his final closing remarks.
And before we go, if anyone watching wants to ask us a question, please type it in the chat and we'll answer it. What have we got coming up?
What have we done? If you missed it, I got back from US actually Tuesday before last, early in the morning. What a jet lag day that Tuesday was. But on the Thursday night, myself and Nina Trinket gave a presentation, webinar through Doctors for Nutrition, on nutrition and the prevention, treatment and reversal of heart disease. You need to watch their webinars live, otherwise
take out
a membership of Doctors for Nutrition. Hey, it's a good charitable thing to do, because we need to support Doctors for Nutrition. They're the only organisation in Australia that's speaking, and New Zealand speaking out for whole foods, plant-based diet, and they have their conference.
It's a symposium, not
a one-day conference. There are a few more events on the Sunday. 1 to 2 day conference in Adelaide on the.
Meaning it's a bit low key. They had a conference 2 years ago, which was a lot more expensive. This one, if you're in the Adelaide region, mid-November. What is it, about the 8th of November?
Yeah. Same day as the pageant.
It's not too expensive this time. Yeah.
And what else have we got? We're in the midst of a introductory 4-part webinar series, and we've got an immersion coming up on the 19th of October.
Less than 2 weeks. And
less than 2 weeks.
Pretty much full, but we did have a cancellation, so there is a spare room still, which could be filled by 1 or 2.
And I think there's still probably 1 or 2 spots in a share room with some other women.
So we've been asked the question, are we not worried about the government situation going to the USA? Look, we were, we were conscious of it before we went, and we were conscious of anything we did or say in the social media space. But honestly, getting off a Qantas flight with a few hundred other people, and we were just straight through. There was no issue.
No worse than usual. The immigration officers, as soon as you say conference, you're here on business, and it's like, no, we're not. It's just personal education, etc. So it's nothing different to usual. And when we're actually at the conference, and having our wearing out or being worn out by 3 different sets of friends in the East, we were sort of too busy to sort of look at the daily newspaper. So we sort of got behind on the dystopian drama that we read on the Trump administration. So yeah, no, there wasn't. Although we did, I did hear one or two people sort of over there, sort of like, how far can this go? Having that thought. The next conference over there, the Plant Nutrition are going to move their conference. It's probably going to be in May next year, because September, October is now beginning to clash with too many other events. But they haven't yet set a date or a venue, and we may or may not go. But if we don't go, we'll binge watch it online.
Yeah, so as I say, it was lovely being there, lovely staying at the places we visited and the friends we were with, and being with about 500 or more at the conference. So we were in a bit of a bubble and weren't really affected by what's going on.
And walking around Boston, going for a big day walk we had there, and just it was quite a nice city. And then with our friends wandering around New York, it was just busy, crowded New York.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? So thanks, your support, Sally. With it's worth having a membership to Doctors for Nutrition. So I shall put in the comments, and long term only the YouTube survives, but for the next month this will be up on Facebook for rewatching. I will put some links in the Facebook comments, but as I say, long term you can go to our YouTube channel and you can actually catch up on all our past live streams. I've got them all sort of nicely organised that you can browse through them and see what we've been talking about. And who knows what we will talk about for our next one. We've always got things we're looking into that we want to share. We'll work something
to be announced.
To be announced. And again, I think I've said this
probably
before.
In November.
Always, could be right at the end of October, possibly. If you want us to address a particular topic, give us a shout out. We are now fairly regularly sending newsletters again. For a couple of years, we hardly sent any. Trying to get one out monthly. If we miss a month, maybe it'll be every 2 months. And so again, and if you are not on our mailing list, get in touch. Go to our website. That's the wholefoodsplantbased.com.au, and you can sign up for our mailing list. So until next time, good night, everyone. And sorry about the misstart. Don't know what was going on there. I set up live stream to StreamYard to stream directly to Facebook and YouTube, and it gave me an error message for Facebook, so I don't know what that was about.
I've heard it said before, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I'll have to add to that, except when you're dealing with IT systems.
Yes. Okay, so good night, everyone. See you next time.